The medical bay doors hissed open, and Counselor Vexera then stepped through with her daughter cradled against her chest. The human physician didn't look up from his tablet. Vexera's forearms tightened, two supporting Kessa's withered legs, two pressed against the child's trembling back. Every specialist across 9 systems had said the same thing. Spinal necrosis. Irreversible. The human's continued silence felt like mockery. Dr. Chin. Vexera's voice carried the controlled frost she used in Parliament. I was assured you could help. He finally glanced up. His eyes, those unsettling forward-facing predator eyes, swept over Kessa once, then returned to his screen. Put her on the exam table. Vexera's blood cooled further. She hadn't amassed a fortune spanning 3 sectors by tolerating dismissiveness. But Kessa's small hand clutched her shoulder, and that touch dissolved her fury into something rawer. She lowered her daughter onto the sterile surface. Kessa's legs lay motionless, bent at angles that made Vexera's stomach churn even after 2 years. The child's face, so like her own, with wide-set eyes and the delicate cranial ridges of their people, turned toward the human with more hope than Vexera could bear to witness. Can you fix me? Kessa's voice was barely a whisper. Chin approached without answering. His movements were economical, precise. He placed one hand on Kessa's spine, fingers pressing through the medical gown. Vexera watched his expression for any sign, pity, doubt, anything. His face remained blank as stone. The skin showed complete degradation of the neural pathways from T4 down. Chen's tone was clinical. Every Zithian doctor you consulted was correct in their assessment. Vexera's primary heart stuttered. She'd spent 20 million credits getting here. Called in favors that had taken decades to accumulate. The Human Medical Research Facility on Kepler 442b had been her last thread of hope, and now. However, Chin withdrew his hand. Zithian doctors don't know what human medicine can do. He tapped his tablet. A holographic spine materialized above it, Kessa's spine, rendered in cruel detail. The dead sections glowed red, a constellation of failure. Your people use bioregeneration, attempting to restart what's broken. We use replacement. His fingers swiped through the hologram. Synthetic neurografts. Cybernetic integration at the cellular level. We don't fix the original pathways. We build new ones. Vexera's translator implant struggled with some of his terminology. The concepts felt alien, violent. You want to put machines inside my daughter? I want to give her the ability to walk. Chen's eyes met hers. The choice is yours. Kessa's hand found Vexera's. Those small fingers squeezed with desperate strength. Mama, please. 3 hours later, Vexera sat in the observation gallery while human surgeons moved around her daughter's open body with terrifying confidence. She couldn't watch. She couldn't look away. Her communications implant buzzed incessantly. Parliament business, corporate emergencies, 3 different crisis situations that normally would command her complete attention. She silenced everything. A human nurse approached with a cup of something hot. It'll be several more hours. Dr. Chin is the best. Your daughter's in good hands. Vexera didn't drink. She stared through the surgical theater's viewing window at Kessa's small form, surrounded by humans and their machines and their arrogant certainty that they could rebuild what nature had destroyed. The surgery lasted 9 hours. When Chin emerged, his surgical scrubs were clean. The precision of human robotics left no blood, but exhaustion lined his face. The grafts took. Integration is proceeding faster than expected. He pulled up a new scan. Kessa's spine glowed with threads of blue light, artificial pathways weaving through dead tissue. She'll need time to adjust. The neural mapping process isn't instantaneous. But barring complications, she should regain motor function within 3 weeks. Should. Vexera's voice cracked on the word. Will, Chin corrected. I don't make promises I can't keep, Counselor. 2 weeks of rehabilitation followed. Vexera watched humans guide her daughter through exercises that seemed impossible. Kessa would stare at her legs with fierce concentration, and sometimes, just sometimes, a toe would twitch. The humans celebrated these microscopic victories like they mattered. Like a flexed toe was equivalent to walking. On the 16th day, Vexera arrived at the facility to find Kessa sitting upright without support. The child's face blazed with triumph. "Mama, watch!" Kessa's legs shifted. Both feet pressed flat against the floor. The movement was jerky, uncoordinated, but it was movement. Voluntary movement. Impossible movement. Vexera's vision blurred. All four of her hands pressed against the observation window. "Now watch this." Kessa's voice carried a determination Vexera had never heard before. Her daughter stood up. She stood. The legs that had hung dead for 2 years now bore weight. Kessa wavered, arms windmilling for balance, and took one step forward. Then another. Her gait was stilted, mechanical, nothing like the fluid grace of their people. But she was walking. Vexera ran into the room. She caught Kessa as the child's strength gave out, all four arms wrapping around her daughter in a desperate embrace. Kessa laughed, actually laughed, and Vexera realized she was making a sound she'd forgotten existed. Joy. Pure, unbridled joy. "I told you the humans could do it, Mama." Kessa's face pressed against her shoulder. "I told you." "You did." Vexera's voice broke completely. "You absolutely did." She looked up to find Dr. Chen watching from the doorway, the barest hint of a smile on his face. Behind him, 2 figures in formal dress stood with the rigid posture of officials. One was human. The other wore the crimson sash of the Zithian Royal Guard. The guard's eyes fixed on Kessa with an intensity that made Vexera's protective instincts flare. She pulled her daughter closer. "Counselor, then." The guard's voice carried formal weight. "Her Majesty the Queen requests an audience." "Immediately." The word requests was purely ceremonial. When the Queen called, one answered. Vexera's security detail materialized around them as they exited the facility. She kept Kessa in her arms despite the child's protests that she could walk now. The royal transport waited outside, a sleek vessel bearing the Queen's personal seal. Vexera's mind raced through political calculations. She'd had minimal contact with the royal family since entering Parliament. Her wealth came from shipping and resource extraction, not hereditary privilege. Why would the Queen want? Understanding struck like a plasma bolt. Someone in the royal family was injured. And they'd heard about Kessa. The transport carried them to the palace complex in silence. The royal guard's expression revealed nothing, but his hand never left his sidearm. They passed through 7 security checkpoints, each more intensive than the last. Kessa pressed against Vexera's chest, her earlier joy fading into nervousness. "Mama, why are we here?" "I don't know, little star." Vexera kept her voice calm. "But we'll face it together." They were brought to a private medical wing Vexera didn't know existed. The halls gleamed with antiseptic perfection. More guards lined the corridor, their faces identically blank. At the end stood a set of reinforced doors. The guard who'd collected them pressed his palm to the scanner. The doors opened. Inside, the Queen stood beside a bed. Her 8 braided head tendrils were arranged in a formal pattern that spoke of barely contained stress. In the bed lay a girl perhaps 2 years older than Kessa. Princess Selira. The Queen's only heir. The princess's legs were twisted, atrophied. Exactly like Kessa's had been. Queen Thazara's eyes locked onto Kessa, who stood on her own feet, wobbling but upright in Vexera's supporting grip. The room's temperature seemed to drop. "Is it true?" The Queen's voice was soft, dangerous. "Human medicine did this?" Vexera's throat went dry. She was standing before the most powerful being in their civilization, who was staring at her daughter like she was the answer to an impossible prayer. One wrong word could mean everything or nothing. Kessa, with the fearless honesty of children, spoke first. "The humans built new pathways in my spine. Dr. Chen said I'm part machine now. Do you want to see me walk?" The Queen's composure cracked. Just for a moment, she wasn't a monarch. She was a mother watching another child do what her own daughter couldn't. "Yes," Queen Thazara whispered. "Please. Show me." Vexera set Kessa down gently. Her daughter stood, found her balance, and took 3 careful steps toward the princess's bed. Each movement was proof of the impossible. Princess Selira's eyes widened with desperate hope. She looked at her mother. "Can they help me too?" The queen's hand trembled as she touched her daughter's face. When she looked back at Vexera, her expression held calculation, hope, and barely concealed desperation. "Dr. Chin will be brought here. Today. With whatever equipment and staff he requires." The queen's voice steadied into command. "Your daughter will stay as well. I want her examined daily. I want every detail of her recovery documented. And, counselor, then." The queen's eyes bore into her. "If this works, if my daughter walks again, you'll have whatever you want. Name it." Vexera's political instincts stirred. This was leverage beyond anything she'd imagined. But looking at the princess's hopeful face, at Kessa's proud stance, calculation felt obscene. "I want nothing, your majesty. Except for every child like our daughters to have the same chance." The queen studied her for a long moment. Then, for the first time in Vexera's memory, the monarch smiled. Not the formal expression used in public addresses, but something genuine and fierce. "Then, we are in agreement, counselor. Bring the human. We're going to change everything." Dr. Chin arrived within 3 hours, accompanied by a team of human specialists and enough equipment to establish a complete surgical center. He showed no deference to the queen's presence, treating her exactly as he treated Vexera, with professional detachment and absolute confidence. "Princess Selira's condition is more advanced than Kessa's was," he announced after his examination. "The degradation extends further up the spine. But it's still within parameters for neurograft integration. What are the risks?" Queen Thazara's voice was steady, but Vexera saw how her hands gripped her daughter's. "Rejection of the grafts. Infection. Incomplete integration resulting in partial paralysis rather than complete recovery." Chen's bluntness made the guards shift uncomfortably. "There's also the psychological adjustment. She'll be able to feel the synthetic pathways. Some patients describe it as having metal threads running through their body. It takes time to accept that." "I don't care about metal threads." Princess Selira's voice was stronger than her body. "I want to walk." "Then we proceed." The queen looked at Chin. "When?" "I need 2 days to adapt the grafts to her specific physiology. The surgery will take approximately 12 hours. He glanced at Kessa. "Having a successful case to reference helps tremendously." Those 2 days transformed the palace's medical wing into something between a laboratory and a fortress. Human and Zithian medical staff worked side by side, integrating technologies that had never been combined before. Vexera watched it all, Kessa at her side, feeling history pivot around them. The night before Princess Selira's surgery, Queen Thazara invited them to a private dinner. No guards, no advisors. Just 2 mothers and their daughters. "I've spent 3 years hearing that nothing could be done." The queen's formal bearing had softened. "Every specialist, every treatment, every experimental therapy, nothing. Then I received a report about a human facility performing miracles, and a counselor's daughter who walked after 2 years of paralysis. I didn't believe it either," Vexera admitted. "Even after seeing the scans, reading the research. Not until I saw her stand." Kessa and Selira sat together, the princess asking endless questions about the surgery, the recovery, what it felt like. Kessa answered with the cheerful honesty of a child who'd already forgotten what it meant to be helpless. "Does it hurt? The metal parts?" Selira's hands twisted in her lap. "Sometimes. When they're learning to talk to my brain." Kessa tilted her head thoughtfully. "But it's not bad hurt. It's like tingles. And then, suddenly my toes move, and nothing else matters." Selira's eyes shone. "I want that. I want to feel my toes again." The queen's expression held barely restrained emotion. She looked at Vexera. "However this turns out, you've given her hope. That alone is beyond price." The surgery began at dawn. This time, Vexera wasn't alone in the observation gallery. Queen Thazara stood beside her, both of them watching the same terrifying precision being applied to another daughter. The hours ground past with agonizing slowness. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say. When complications arose 7 hours in, Chen's voice over the intercom was calm but tight. Neural mapping is encountering resistance in the upper graphs. Compensating. The Queen's hand found Vexera's. They stood like that, two mothers united in helpless terror, while humans worked miracles or failures below. After 13 hours, Chen emerged. His exhaustion was profound, but his eyes were clear. It's done. Integration is proceeding. She'll wake in approximately 2 hours. Queen Thazara's composure shattered. She sat down heavily, head in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Vexera wanted to offer comfort but didn't know how to comfort a queen. Then, Kessa walked over, still unsteady, still learning, and put her small hand on the monarch's shoulder. Princess Selira is strong. She'll walk even better than me. The queen pulled Kessa into an embrace, and for a moment, they were just beings who understood pain and hope. When Princess Selira woke, her first words were slurred with medication but clear. Did it work? The graphs integrated successfully. Chen stood beside her bed. But remember what I told you. Recovery takes time. Your body needs to learn the new pathways. Show me. Selira's voice hardened with determination that reminded Vexera exactly whose daughter she was. Chen activated a holographic display. The princess's spine glowed with the same blue threads that adorned Kessa's scans. See these connections? They're already forming. Your brain is learning to use them. How long until I can walk? Based on Kessa's progress, 3 to 4 weeks. Possibly sooner, you're older, which can accelerate conscious motor control. Over the following weeks, the palace transformed. What had been a private medical crisis became something larger. News spread despite attempts at secrecy. The princess was undergoing experimental human treatment. Speculation ran wild. Some called it desperation. Others called it blasphemy, putting machines in royal flesh. The queen handled it with iron control. She held a single press conference, standing beside Dr. Chin and Kessa. My daughter suffered an injury 3 years ago that our best medicine could not heal. Human innovation offered hope where our science offered none. She chose to take that chance. The Queen's voice carried across every communication network. In 2 weeks, you'll see the results. Until then, we ask for patience and respect. Vexera watched the political currents shift. Conservative factions decried human interference in Zithian bodies. Progressive elements celebrated cross-species medical cooperation. Her own parliament seat became a focal point. She received threats, bribes, appeals for support. She ignored it all, spending her days at the palace while Kessa and Selira recovered together. The two girls became inseparable. Kessa, weeks ahead in her recovery, coached Selira through every small victory. When the princess managed to wiggle her toes, they celebrated like she'd conquered a planet. When she stood for the first time, leaning heavily on support rails, Kessa cheered so loud the guards came running. You're doing better than I did. Kessa bounced on her still uncertain legs. Dr. Chen said you're ahead of schedule. Selira's face glowed with effort and triumph. Race you to the door next week. Deal. 3 weeks after surgery, Princess Selira walked. Not the stilted, mechanical steps of early recovery, but actual walking. She crossed her room to where her mother stood, tears streaming down the Queen's face. I did it, Mother. I actually did it. Queen Thazara pulled her daughter close, and the facade of royal control evaporated. She wept openly, uncaring who saw. The Queen kept her word. A week later, she held a grand ceremony in the palace's main hall. Vexera stood uncomfortably in formal dress as the Queen addressed the assembled parliament, nobility, and media. 3 weeks ago, my daughter took her first steps in 3 years. This miracle was achieved not through Zithian medicine, but through human innovation and the courage of Counselor Then's daughter, who proved it was possible. The Queen gestured to where Kessa and Selira stood together, both girls walking without assistance. I announced the formation of the Cross-Species Medical Initiative, with full royal funding. Every child suffering from conditions our medicine cannot heal will have access to these treatments. This begins today. The political explosion was immediate. Conservative factions erupted in protest. Progressive elements rallied support. But the image of Princess Selira walking had already spread across every system. Public opinion shifted like a wave. Vexera found herself thrust into a position she'd never anticipated, the face of medical revolution. The Queen appointed her to lead the initiative's implementation. Her wealth, political experience, and personal stake made her the obvious choice. I didn't ask for this, she told the Queen during a private meeting. Neither did I ask for my daughter's injury. Neither did you ask for yours. Queen Thazara's eyes were knowing. But we're here, and we have the power to help thousands. Will you refuse them? Vexera thought of all the parents she'd met in waiting rooms, eyes hollow with exhausted hope. Of the children who never know the simple joy of walking. Of Kessa's face the first time she'd stood. No. I won't refuse. The first public facility opened 6 months later. Dr. Chen led the medical team, training Zithian doctors in human techniques. The waiting list stretched into the thousands. Vexera worked 18-hour days, managing logistics, funding, political opposition, and her own corporation. Kessa and Princess Selira became the initiative's most visible advocates, 2 children proving the impossible. Opposition grew more organized. A faction of traditionalist nobles called the Purist Council began campaigning against contamination of Zithian purity with alien technology. They had money, political connections, and the fear of change on their side. They also had no answer when Kessa and Selira appeared at Parliament, walking perfectly, and asked a simple question. If the choice is walking with human help or never walking at all, why would you choose never? Selira's voice carried her mother's authority. I chose to walk. Every child deserves that choice. The Purist Council's support crumbled. They couldn't argue against a princess who embodied their failure and humanity's success. Within 2 years, 5 facilities operated across Zithian space. Human and Zithian medical teams worked as equals, pushing the boundaries of what both species thought possible. The neurograph technology advanced rapidly, incorporating Zithian biological understanding with human engineering. Recovery times shortened. Success rates climbed. Vexera stood in the newest facility's observation gallery, watching a young girl take her first steps. The child's mother stood where Vexera had once stood, all 4 hands pressed to the glass, hope and terror warring on her face. Dr. Chen appeared at Vexera's side. He'd aged in 2 years, the weight of training hundreds of doctors showing in new lines on his face. But his eyes held satisfaction. Another success. That's 1,247. 1,247 miracles, Vexera corrected. Science, not miracles. But he smiled slightly. Though I'll admit, watching them walk never gets old. Below, the girl took another step, then another. Her mother's cry of joy echoed through the gallery's speakers. Thank you? Vexera's voice was quiet. For Kessa. For all of them. For proving everyone wrong. I didn't prove anything. Just applied what we know to a problem that needed solving. Chen glanced at her. You're the one who took the risk. Brought your daughter to a species you barely trusted. That took more courage than anything I did. Desperation, not courage. There's often little difference. He checked his tablet. The Queen wants us at the palace. Something about the next phase. They found Queen Thazara in her private office, reviewing holographic reports. Princess Selira was there too, now walking with the unconscious grace of someone who'd never been injured. At 13, she was growing into her mother's commanding presence. Counselor. Dr. Chen. Thank you for coming. The Queen dismissed her advisors with a gesture. I have a proposition. The initiative has been an overwhelming success. Thousands of children can now walk who never would have. But we've barely scratched the surface of what human-Zithian medical cooperation could achieve. She pulled up new displays. Research proposals, facility plans, funding projections that made Vexra's head spin. I want to expand beyond spinal injuries, neural disorders, organ failure, genetic conditions. Everything our medicine struggles with, approached with human innovation. The Queen's eyes held that fierce determination Vexra had seen when she first watched Kessa walk. I want to make this permanent. A full alliance between human and Zithian medical research, with unlimited resources and royal mandate. Dr. Chen studied the projections. This would require permanent human staff, full integration of our medical databases, access to treatments that are still experimental on Earth. Yes. I'm aware. The Queen leaned forward. I'm offering a mutual exchange. Your experimental treatments get Zithian biological knowledge and funding beyond anything your governments could provide. Our people get access to innovations that could save millions. Both species benefit. My government would need to approve. I've already spoken to her Secretary of Health. They're interested. Pending your recommendation. Chen's eyebrows rose. He looked at Vexra. What do you think, Counselor? You've seen both sides of this. Vexra thought about the last 2 years. The children learning to walk. The parents weeping with joy. The political battles, the opposition, the fear of change. And Kessa, running through the palace gardens with Salira, both girls laughing, whole. I think we'd be fools to stop now. The agreement was signed 3 months later. The Human-Zithian Medical Alliance became official, with facilities on both Earth and Zithian worlds. Dr. Chen was appointed Chief Medical Director. Vexra became the Alliance's civilian overseer, managing the political and logistical challenges. Princess Salira, when she came of age at 16, chose to study medicine. I want to help others the way Dr. Chen helped me, she announced. The traditionalists couldn't object. The heir to the throne had spoken. On the 5th anniversary of Kessa's surgery, Vexra stood on a stage before thousands. The alliance had grown beyond anything she'd imagined. 17 facilities. Over 10,000 successful treatments. Research breakthroughs in neural regeneration that benefited both species. Kessa stood beside her, now 12 years old and completely indistinguishable from any other Zithian child in how she moved. Only the faint blue threads visible in deep scans revealed her synthetic pathways. 5 years ago, my daughter couldn't walk, Vexra told the crowd. I was told nothing could be done. That I should accept the impossible. Then I met a human who refused to accept impossible as an answer. Dr. Chen didn't see my daughter as a lost cause. He saw a problem waiting for a solution. She gestured to the crowd, where hundreds of children who'd received neurografts stood with their families. Every child here represents that same refusal. We were told cross-species medicine was too risky, too experimental, too dangerous. We were told to wait for our own science to catch up. But children don't have time to wait. They need help now. Queen Thazara stood in the front row, Princess Salira beside her. Both were smiling. The alliance has proven something crucial. When we set aside fear and pride, when we cooperate instead of compete, we can achieve miracles. She paused, catching Dr. Chen's eye. He shook his head slightly, and she smiled. We can achieve what once seemed impossible. And this is only the beginning. The crowd erupted in applause. Kessa squeezed her mother's hand. Good speech, Mama. Thank you, little star. Vexra pulled her daughter close. Ready for your part? Kessa nodded and stepped to the microphone. Her voice carried clearly, no hesitation. Hi. I'm Kessa then. 5 years ago, I couldn't feel my legs. Now I run faster than my friends. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Some people say it's weird that I have human technology in my body. That I'm not really Zithian anymore. But I am Zithian. I'm also proof that humans and Zithians together can do amazing things. And I think that's pretty cool. More laughter, and applause that seemed to shake the building. Kessa stepped back, grinning. After the ceremony, they gathered privately, Vexera and Kessa, the Queen and Selira, Dr. Chen and his senior staff. The celebration was quieter here, more intimate. To the next 5 years. Queen Thazara raised a glass. And to the stubborn human who started it all. Dr. Chen inclined his head. To the desperate mother who trusted him. To the princess who gave it legitimacy. Vexera added. To Kessa, who proved it worked. Selira finished. They drank, and Vexera felt the weight of 5 years settle into something like peace. Not completion, there was too much work left for that. But peace nonetheless. Later, as guests departed and the hall emptied, Vexera found the queen standing alone by a window overlooking the gardens. In the distance, Kessa and Selira raced through the grounds, both moving with effortless grace. Do you ever think about that day? Vexera asked quietly. When you first saw Kessa walk? Every day. The queen's voice was soft. I think about what I would have done if it hadn't worked. If my daughter had undergone surgery and remained paralyzed. The political cost. The personal cost. Would you have tried anyway? Yes. No hesitation. Because not trying meant accepting her suffering as inevitable. I couldn't do that. No parent could. They watched the girls disappear around a corner, laughing. They'll be best friends forever, the queen mused. A princess and a counselor's daughter. The traditionalists hate it. Good. Vexera smiled. Let them hate it. Their children can walk now too. The queen laughed, genuine and warm. You've changed, counselor. 5 years ago, you never would have said that. 5 years ago, I was terrified every moment. Now I'm only terrified most of the time. That's what leadership feels like. Constant terror and the determination to keep moving anyway. The queen turned to face her. I'm making Selira the Alliance's official royal patron when she turns 18. She'll have full authority to expand operations, negotiate with other species, whatever she deems necessary. Other species? Vexera's political instincts stirred. We're barely managing what we have. 3 other civilizations have made inquiries. They've seen our results. They want the same for their people. The queen's eyes gleamed. This is bigger than Zithian human cooperation now. It's becoming something unprecedented. A true multi-species medical alliance. The scope of it was staggering. Also inevitable. Of course other species would want access to treatments that worked miracles. We'll need more funding. More facilities. More staff. Vexera's mind raced through logistics. The political complexity alone is why I need you to stay on as overseer. For at least another decade. The queen's tone made it clear this wasn't a request. You've built this from nothing. I won't let it collapse because you decided to retire. Your Majesty, I haven't even considered. Good. Then don't. The queen smiled. Your daughter and mine changed the universe, counselor. We're just helping manage the consequences. That night, Vexera sat with Kessa before bed. Her daughter's room in their residence was covered with images from the last 5 years. Kessa with Selira, Kessa at various facilities meeting other children, Kessa receiving an award from Dr. Chen. Mama? Kessa's voice was thoughtful. Do you think I would have been happy if I never walked again? The question struck Vexera silent for a moment. She thought about the alternate timeline, the version of their lives where she'd never taken Kessa to Dr. Chen. Where her daughter had remained paralyzed. I think you would have found happiness somehow. You're strong enough. Vexera stroked Kessa's head tendrils gently. But I'm grateful we never had to find out. Me too. Kessa yawned. Princess Selira says when we're older we should visit Earth. Meet the people who invented the neurographs. Would you like that? Yeah. I want to thank them. And see what other cool stuff humans have invented. Kessa's eyes were already closing. Maybe they have solutions for other impossible things too. Vexera stayed until her daughter's breathing deepened into sleep. Then, she stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, children were sleeping who wouldn't have survived without the Alliance. Parents were resting without the crushing weight of helplessness. Her communications implant chimed softly. A message from Dr. Chin, new research breakthrough. Neurographs could potentially treat memory disorders. Sending full report. Vexera smiled. Of course there was a breakthrough. There was always another breakthrough, another impossible problem waiting for a solution. She thought about what she told the crowd earlier. About cooperation over competition, about refusing to accept impossible. Those weren't just words. They were the foundation of everything they'd built. In the morning, there would be more work. More political battles. More children needing help. More species requesting alliance membership. The challenges would never end. But tonight Vexera looked at her sleeping daughter and felt something she'd thought lost forever 5 years ago. Hope. Simple, powerful, unbreakable hope. And that was worth everything.